A while back, I did an episode on the 50 greatest horror movies of all time. Now, I will admit that that list needs some work. I left out some clear ringers and included some head scratches. One person in the comments, whose comments I really do appreciate, contested one particular choice that I made, which was placing John Carpenter's The Fog above John Carpenter's Halloween. Now, although there is a lot on that list that I simply cannot defend, that particular choice I will defend until the end of my days. So for today, I am going to put aside my gushing love and adoration for Carpenter's Halloween and its OG of horror, Michael Myers, and give you not one, not two, but 5 ways in which The Fog absolutely kicks that masked mute's butt 6 shades of blue.
Ready? Fight!
John Carpenter himself opined The Fog for its low production values, and yes, admittedly, The Fog is not the trailblazer that Halloween was, but it's still a far more ambitious horror movie, playing with deeper themes, character development, sound, and special effects, and doing so in such a way that very few horror movies back in the day would even have dared.
Mega kill.
Firstly, there's The Fog's bold use of daylight. I mean, this film sets its horror on the sunny coastlines and in the blue waters of Antonio Bay, contrasting the beauty with the ugliness. I mean, Carpenter took a bold step in utilizing the harsh light of day to create his sense of tension and horror and unease, whereas Halloween, like most horror movies, hides behind the cloak of darkness like a scared little horror chicken.
Mega kill.
Second, The Fog focuses on actual character development, which was practically unprecedented in the horror genre. The characters in The Fog feel like real people, complete with complexity and depth, whereas the characters in Halloween are about as three-dimensional as a Michael Myers cutout. I also think that The Fog gave Jamie Lee Curtis a far more meatier role that actually highlighted her talent as an actress, rather than those endless scenes of running and screaming down the streets of Haddonfield.
Mega kill.
Now, the third way in which The Fog is a far more superior horror movie to Halloween is the soundtrack. Now, I know that you are going to talk about Halloween's iconic tetu theme. Halloween soundtrack is the musical equivalent to a bubblegum pop song. Yes, it's catchy, but it's probably as interesting as the music you hear in a dentist's waiting room. Both films were scored by John Carpenter, granted, but I think that it was while scoring The Fog that John Carpenter really came into his own, creating something far more dynamic, far more textured, and far more interesting than tetu.
Mega kill.
Fourth, The Fog, with its ghost story premise, is truly chilling, and it creeps with the kind of airy atmosphere that many horror movies dream of, but very few realize. It's also more thought-provoking than Halloween. It's not as neatly packaged, and with its open-ending twist, it challenges the audience and is far more morally ambiguous. It's the kind of story that creeps beneath your skin after you watch it and continues to unfold in your imagination rather than in a string of unnecessary sequels, remakes, and parodies.
Flawless victory. Game over.
And finally, it's the violence. The threat of violence is often more terrifying than the act itself. Halloween leaves very little to the viewer's imagination with its hack, slash, and bludgeon level of death. However, The Fog activates our imagination more by implying the violence. In fact, so minimal was the level of violence in this film initially that John Carpenter, worried that he wouldn't be able to compete with the silent killer of his previous movie, was forced to go back and do some reshoots. The Fog will be remembered as a classic of the horror genre, an American folktale, rich, creepy, and thematically poignant, and a film that masterfully blends scares and storytelling. Halloween, on the other hand, will be remembered as the one movie that had a bunch of sequels and a reboot that nobody asked for. Okay, that's enough bashing Halloween for now. It is clear that John Carpenter's classic had a profound impact on the horror genre. It is considered the first slasher film and has inspired countless imitators. This film's success also helped to usher in a new era of horror, one that was sorely needed. It's also considered one of the best and most influential horror movies of all time, while also giving us a horror icon that is easy to hate but impossible to forget. So, in conclusion, if you want a truly superior horror movie experience, skip Halloween and watch The Fog. Now there you have my opinion, and if you want me to have yours, let me have it down in the comments. Now, even if I haven't convinced you that The Fog is a better horror movie than Halloween, I hope that I've given you some interesting arguments to think about and maybe even persuaded you to go back and watch both movies again. On that note, dear fan of horror, I really hope that you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget to hit that subscribe. Most importantly though, stay safe, stay happy, and stay horror, regardless of which horror movie you love most. See you on the flip side.